All right, welcome to another episode of Full Court Passport. I am Ric Bucher. That is Bostjan, Boki, Nachbar. We are joined by a very special guest, Chris Thomas. I will get to him in a minute in terms of his introduction, but I need to acknowledge our new sponsor, New Air Club. It's a brand new door-to-door private jet service. What sets New Air apart is that it does more than arrange your private jet and crew. They will handle ground transportation, hotel, catering requests, security, you name it. And because they bundle their service, you can be sure the trip will cost exponentially less. Now, not everyone can afford private jet travel, but for those who can, make sure you're getting as much luxury for every dollar as you deserve. Check out their website at newairclub.com to see exactly how luxurious travel can be. All right, so Chris Thomas, well known by both Boki and I, but even better known by his head coach, Wyoming head coach Sundance Wicks. And I'm going to read this. It's a little bit of a long introduction, but if you read what Sundance had to say about Chris in the Wyoming media guide, it's a better introduction than I could possibly ever give. This is what Sundance had to say. When it comes to hiring, I am constantly seeking out energy givers, men of high intentionality, artists of their craft, enemies of the status quo, and high character humans who know what it takes to compete and win at the highest level. For this assistant, I was specifically targeting an elite offensive mind and a coach who could add next level professional experience to our program. Cue Coach Chris Thomas. I have known CT since 2007 when he was an advanced scout for the Chicago Bulls. From the moment our paths crossed, I knew three things. One, he was an outstanding human being with incredible juice. Two, he saw the game of basketball in a different way and was a gifted basketball mind. Three, he was going to be someone I would work with one day, and that day has come. So, with no further ado, I give you Chris Thomas.
Listen, Sonny, I've known him for almost 20 years, and you talk about a guy that can inflate somebody's ego. That intro says it all. It's a lot to live up to, that's for sure.
I was blown away. But you know what? I will say this, Chris. Both Boki and I would second single thing that he said, which is why we really appreciate having you on the show.
It means a lot to me to come on and be a part of this. I've loved following the show so far, and just the intersection of the NBA and international. It's just this is like my sweet spot. So this was a podcast made for me, fellas.
For sure. Appreciate awesome. No, thanks for taking the time. I think I have to say that it was the best introduction by far. I hope I get an introduction like this one day by some famous coach or GM
by anybody.
By anybody. But Chris, we're going to get maybe in some more details of your basketball travel in a second. But out of all the coaching jobs you had so far, which one taught you the most? Which one for you was most rewarding?
Man, it's I have such a long list of stops, Boki. So it's tough to pick just one. But I think some of the experiences where I've learned the most, definitely my experience coaching in Puerto Rico. I was a head coach and GM of a pretty high level team down there. Had some former NBA guys on my roster, and David Stockton and Ronaldo Balkman and Terrence Jones. It was a great experience, not just from the standpoint of, we won a lot of games, but putting the roster together. It was my first time, really having that GM, role where it was solely on me for both, domestic and international, foreign players. So I learned a lot about building rosters, about, managing egos, about, kind of balancing the media requests off the floor versus the game prep and everything that kind of goes into every single night. So that was a big one for me. But is without sounding like I'm just saying this because I'm on with you, that the national team experience with Slovenia was just mind blowing. that 2013 summer where I got to coach you, and we got to do it in front of the home fans in Slovenia at the European Championships. That was my introduction really to international basketball, and it was what really kind of propelled me, to kind of go forward with that in my career.
Yeah, that
Chris,
was definitely a fun time. I mean, we could probably make a podcast only about that summer
Yes.
of 2013.
There is no doubt. There's so many stories from that summer, and just so many just amazing memories, fond memories that I've taken with me from that. I mean, just I thought about this the other night. We actually just played a big rival of ours at Wyoming, Colorado State. We just played them last night, and you're listening to the national anthem, and you get goosebumps. And it really took me back to playing in front of the home fans in Slovenia. Not even my national anthem, and I still remember getting goosebumps hearing it and hearing the fans. So that experience alone was just incredible for me.
feeding into that, I'm curious because you've coached in so many different places. I imagine the experiences that you've had through basketball have been extraordinary. Is there one unforgettable moment that you've had, or maybe more than one, that comes to mind when you think about your basketball travels and all the places it's taken you?
Yeah, so Rick, I've been so lucky. I mean, this small orange ball has shown me literally 59 countries, basically. So, I've had the experience of, traveling, obviously, to play. But one thing I always do, I always try to, if I can, peel away and go, kind of absorb a culture while I'm in a place. So I still remember when I had the opportunity to go to Cambodia and to see, Angkor Wat, and to really that experience was, the history and the things that are behind that. I just remember sitting there, literally being brought to tears, as I was there. And another experience for me too was, standing on the Great Wall of China. I'm a kid from Dayton, Ohio. Like my parents don't even have passports, and I'm standing on the Great Wall of China, just kind of soaking all that in. So
Yeah.
the basketball portion has been incredible. I love this game more than I love to breathe. But the things that it's afforded me off the floor too have been, have just been, experiences that I'll relish for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
And part of that, your experiences of traveling to 59 countries, like you said, but also seeing basketball from many different angles. You probably have your own view on how international game has grown over the last couple of decades, especially you working with the Warriors, then with the Bulls, then being international coach at many levels during that time. How do you think we got here? In a sense, like how did you see the progression of international basketball and its influence on the NBA and where it is now?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of your guests have said this already. I know, but um, the influence that Europe has brought to the NBA has been immense. I mean, you see it in every corner and every aspect of everything that goes on a nightly basis in the league. And for me, especially I was also outside of the assistant coaching experience that I had with the national team. Being a head coach in Slovenia, being a head coach in Croatia last year, you really see that from the ground up, from the bottom floor, from the youth ages, the level of development of skill that goes into it at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old is it's no secret. It's no mystery that players grow up, and guys like Jokic who can dribble, pass, and shoot. There's no specialized. Okay, you're already 6 feet tall. We're gonna stuff you under the basket, and you're just gonna you're gonna play down there. No, everybody needs to learn and grow and develop in order to take steps forward. And that development, I think that approach, that holistic approach to player development has really infiltrated, not just the NBA, but the college level and the youth levels, here in the US. So the influence is so wide ranging, and it's so, immersive in terms of, really building programs through, kind of what goes on in Europe. And to see that firsthand, I mean, I was blown away too, Boki. Like, going to watch some of our younger games, our U16 team play when I was with Lashko, they have shot clocks at 16 years old, and it's just shoot in high school here in the U.S. nobody has a shot clock. Like there's very few states now that have incorporated that into what they do. So just the development at the youth level is something that you see. It's been brought over here to the U.S. It's been brought over here at the collegiate level, just that attention to detail and really sort of teaching the game from a holistic approach.
Yeah. That's one thing that I've noticed watching more high school and college basketball now is that the shot clock, not just that in some games it's not even there, but even the 30-second shot clock is kind of, on one hand you can say, yeah, there's probably benefits to that, teaching slower pace and all that, but I think the world of basketball has moved past that. Like, if you look at all the international plays, 24 seconds, all the pro play, whether it's NBA, whether it's in Europe, whether it's international, male, female, is 24.
Yes.
What's your review on that? No coaching in college and having 30-second shot clock. It feels like you guys are like behind when it comes to international basketball. But behind, I mean, like, it's developed in different direction.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I coached a guy named Josh Powell in China, won 2 NBA championships with the Lakers. And he told a great story. And I loved his Phil Jackson stories. They were priceless. But, he had this story where Phil would literally bring a drum to practice. And by the time he'd hit it, you'd have to either pass, shoot, or dribble, make a move. And, I think that's kind of lost, in a 30-second shot clock. You don't have to process things as quickly. And so to kind of teach that at a younger age is priceless, in terms of that carryover. But again, I think that there, like you said, Boki, there are benefits to the 30-second shot clock too, in terms of you can run more actions. Coaches can get a little more creative and play different styles of play. I think the disparity in talent can be a little leveled off because you can make more decisions within a possession in a 30-second clock versus a 24. So I think at the younger levels, I think that's the thought going into it. But I think you and I know each other well enough. I know I love to play fast, man. Every team I've ever been a head coach of, we've either been first or second in the league in points per game, and so for me, playing at a frenetic pace, is what I lean towards. So I'd be more than welcome to have a 24-second shot clock in the college game as well.
Yeah, it just got me thinking. I was at the game today where my youngest daughter, she's 13, played a game, and the 24-second, they have a 24-second shot clock here in Spain. It's good because the pace is there, but I think it leads to too much confusion. I think for some kids up to some level, maybe high school, 14, 15 and up, would start to make sense. I think for younger, it probably doesn't. It's just too much. So there's benefits and there's pluses and minuses, but I think looking at players who are about to turn pro, for them to still play 30-second shot clock, I think might be a little bit late in that. Just to, we can wrap up, Chris, the 24-second debate, but I'm kind of seeing those differences between one league and the other, and I kind of think the 24-second at the age of kids of 16, 17 and up probably makes more sense than 30 seconds.
And I totally agree with you. Like I said, I think just from the sheer standpoint of the decision making, and as you're younger, like you said, Boki, you need more time to kind of process that. But I think as you advance in age, advance in levels, and all that, I think the 24-second shot clock just makes it more fun too. I mean, it makes it more appealing to fans, faster paced games, and kind of lends itself to bigger audiences.
Yeah.
In light of all this development talk, I'm looking at the NBA where all of the players vying for MVP are international players, and they're leading championship caliber teams. They're winning championships. An American, I don't know. I mean, Cade Cunningham's probably going to be on the ballot this year, but he's the first in a long time where he's really jumping in. Jason Tatum might have made it a couple times in the last few years. What has to happen for this to change when it comes to the U.S. and we are back to developing some of the best players in the world that are leading championship teams?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, again, being at the college level now, uh, it's so funny because, when you're in the NBA, when you're in Europe, you're not really locking in and paying attention to what's going on in college basketball, right? But now having been, doing this for 10 months and being at the University of Wyoming, you're watching college games now, right? So the thing I've seen is this year's crop of draft picks from the collegiate standpoint is absolutely elite. I think there's 5 or 6 guys that are going to walk in the door, and again, maybe not rookie year, but guys are going to join Cooper Flagg's level and be guys that are going to challenge for those MVP awards down the line. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So, and I think where that's come from, Rick, is I do think there has been more of an emphasis now on the overall holistic development. I mean, shoot, Cooper Flagg was playing the point at the beginning of this season. I mean, that dude is a monster, and he's initiating offense, and he's learning how to process the game through one of the greatest minds that's ever played it. So I think that approach is going to allow American players to enter the conversation of Luka and Jokic and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, all those guys, that have really separated themselves in terms of, leading the NBA, leading championship level teams. I think those guys are going to enter that conversation. I just think it takes time. I mean, when you're trying to redo an entire system, it takes a few years to kind of do it. And I do think that holistic approach has really crept into to not just the NBA and college, but to the grassroots level where, oh shoot, we're getting passed by by some of these other countries. We need to adapt what's going on over there. And I truly believe that the fruits of that labor are going to start to show here pretty soon.
How much do you, I wouldn't say realize, but maybe consciously coach the new type of basketball, meaning more of the positionless basketball,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean, we back, late 80s, early 2000s, like the game was much different where you had it was so clear who's the one, who's the five, and the style of play was different. Now watching NBA, which is kind of course, the leading basketball league in the world, you can kind of see the positionless basketball, especially like Cooper Flag, like you mentioned, coming in and being a point guard, even though he's never played as a pure point guard.
right.
How much of that coaching is also changing now at the college level, knowing that you guys are preparing players for the pro level where the game is becoming basically positionless, and how you approach that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our head coach's term is we like to have a lot of punt returners on the floor, meaning guys who are able to rebound the basketball and just push. You don't have to look for an outlet. You don't have to look for a point guard to throw the ball to. It's just a natural way to kind of flow into what you're doing and really keep the defense on their heels. So we want as many ball handlers on the floor as humanly possible. I think that's an approach that's not unique to Wyoming. That's an approach that a lot of guys have had because you can start playing at a pace that's going to be more conducive to success, scoring before a defense is set up. So we absolutely we recruit to that. We develop players to that. And again, I think the one underrated thing, the thing I haven't touched on in terms of player development though, is making reads out of actions, right? It's one thing to be able to pass, shoot, and dribble. It's another thing to know as you're coming off a ball screen, where am I looking? I understand the coverage, I've identified the coverage, I know how to attack the coverage, but now where do my eyes go on the second level? Where do my eyes go in terms of where the help defense is? Those are things that you can only do through breakdowns. Small sided games, things of that nature, where you're really instilling the skills that are going to translate onto the floor at a higher level. So all of those things kind of go into the player development process, and it makes it fun, man. Like it's so exciting to watch a kid come into your program and to be a good player coming in, but be a great player going out. And I think that's where the reward of coaching lies, is in that player development and in that ability to help guys reach a level that they didn't even know was possible.
Mhm.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel as if the reason that international players have become increasingly valued is for that very reason. Is they're able to read and make the play, and I feel like there's been a concentration in the U.S. of it's more isolation. I've got the ball, and I'm going to break my guy down. I'm going to go get mine, rather than I'm making a play. I may get mine if it's there, but I'm kind of keeping my eyes open for what is available beyond that. Like just a court awareness of this play is being run for me. That doesn't mean that I'm taking the shot from
That's right.
beginning to end, right? And I
That's
feel
right.
like that's where the best talent in the US has gone. And so then when you get to the NBA, and if you're not that number one guy, well, now how can I contribute? I don't know how to read where the next play is, right? And
Absolutely.
so, like, I'm watching the Raptors. I'm just infatuated with right now because I'm seeing guys like Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes and guys that were ball dominant
Right.
now making plays. Like the ball is just flowing with them, and
Right.
as a result, they're having this success.
Right.
And so I know it's possible, but it's like, how do you teach that when we've had this mindset of I got to go get 20 and 10 or 30 and whatever in order to get to the next level? Like, how do you, as where you are now, persuade US players, hey, if you want to play in the NBA, this is probably the way you need to learn the game.
There's no doubt. And it's funny too, Rick. Right? It's pretty amazing that the Raptors head coach is a European man. Right?
That's not by accident.
Right. Not by accident that those guys bought into a bought into a system
Well,
of we is greater than me. Right? I mean, there's a lot of
Boki was saying, like, that the NBA leads the way, and I think to a certain extent that's true. But I feel like now there's so many coaches in the NBA
Sure.
that are looking at Europe, like, how do we take things that they're doing
Sure.
that there's a greater influence coming the other way than ever before.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and I think guys like Darko and a guy who I love, Igor Kokoskov is a guy that I can't say enough about him. I wouldn't have been able to get that job with the Slovenian national team if it wasn't for Igor. So, Igor is someone that I owe my career to. Those guys, their influence on the NBA, coming from Europe, coming from successful systems that they have, run and implemented at the highest levels of European basketball. Bringing that to the NBA, it's been monumental, and it's been shifts in that mentality of I got to go get 30 tonight. It's funny because anytime you recruit a player at the college level, or you want to bring somebody in, of course they have to have a prerequisite level of skill. But one thing for us, we really value, our head coach Sundance really values efficiency at our level, and we always talk about bringing guys that can do more with less, and you can continue to build on guys' skill sets when guys come in with that mentality that what, I'm going to give up a good shot for a great one. I'm going to have a play drawn for me, but knowing and understanding that if the team is heavy in a gap, I'm going to be able to get off the ball and trust my teammates. So that's an innate skill that's kind of built within you, but definitely teachable though too. I mean, and again, I think the undervalued part of this too is film study, right? This is one thing I've loved about coming back to the college game too, is these kids are eager to learn. They're eager to be taught. You can teach these kids hard. You can coach these kids hard. Especially the really good ones want to be coached hard. They want to get to the level that you walk in the door and tell them, hey, listen, I got to work with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green and Jermaine O'Neal, and I got to work with guys that you want to get to that level. I've seen it. I've seen how it's done. And those guys, when you have guys around you that are hungry to learn and hungry to grow and hungry to develop, it makes all the difference in the world. And one thing I learned early in my career, I wasn't a great player by any stretch of the imagination, but one thing I learned early in my career was players don't care where you played. Players don't care what your background is in terms of playing time or anything like that. As long as you can help them grow, develop, and get better and get them prepared, that's really all that matters to guys. And
Sure.
so I think when you demonstrate that, hey, listen, let's scrap that selfish mentality. Let's scrap the fact that you got to go out and get 20 every night. How about 15 and 6 assists? It's dominating the game in a much more efficient and better way that's more conducive to team success. And I think the great players understand that.
Absolutely.
For
Absolutely.
sure. For sure.
Rick, you wanna ask the Jaxson Hayes question? And I'll comment on it later. I'll give you my opinion on in general about
because
that.
you've had so much experience, Chris, with the Slovenian basketball system and the national team. So there's a report that Jaxson Hayes from the Lakers, and obviously Luka Doncic's teammate,
Sure.
is finalizing the paperwork to become a Slovenian citizen in order to play on the national team. And so what would a Jaxson Hayes provide? Like, why would they go down this road? Because obviously Slovenia has to have a hand in wanting Jaxson Hayes to be part of the program.
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost, you go back to the year they won the European Championships. With Anthony Randolph on their roster. Similar type of player. Long, rangy,
Yep.
athletic, rim threat. In terms of both lobs and protecting the rim on the defensive end of the floor. The one thing about the Slovenian national team is there's a lot of shooting out there. So, and a lot of playmaking, obviously, with Mr. Doncic. So, you get a guy that can put pressure on the rim. You get a guy where you've got to force tags on the weak side, and you can space the floor with shooting. It makes a ton of sense. And it's an amazing thing too, because he's such a great runner and he's such a great player in the open floor. And just from watching Sasha Sekulic, who I love, and he was an assistant coach with me when I got to coach Boki. He's an excellent basketball mind, and he likes to play an up tempo style as well. So it makes all the sense in the world for him to be there. I don't know how Boki feels in terms of bringing an American guy onto a roster, but from the strictly basketball standpoint, it fills a big need. It fills a big hole. And rightly or wrongly, there's a heck of a lot of countries that do it. That naturalized players, bring them in. And I know there's a lot of controversy behind that, but at the end of the day, if you get to hear your national anthem and you're putting a gold medal around your neck, I don't think a lot of fans are going to really remember, how that happened. They're going to just remember the what behind it. So.
Yeah. No, you ended that explanation really well. I mean, at the end, it's about winning, right? And in 2017, Slovenia winning its first European Championship is what you remember.
Yeah.
Even though we all appreciate Anthony Randolph's role on that team, which was amazing. I think without him, we're probably not winning that championship. And you're right that Jaxson Hayes for the team, it feels a huge need in what we have, like an athletic runner type of guy that not just can play with Luka, but already knows how to play with Luka because they're teammates. So there's only pluses there. Of course, the debate behind is more of is that morally right or not to bring in and basically a foreigner, right? Are we talking about club basketball or national team basketball? And here is always, I have a lot of conversations with my friends in the basketball business, whether that's good or bad. I mean, there's a lot of positives to it, right? A player can come in, can elevate your program. I would even go as far as say elevate basketball as a sport in a certain country, right? If it's a player that can really bring in value on the court and also off the court. The question more is like when you talk about top teams in Europe, if a team like Spain, which has done it in the past, if a team like Germany now, if a team like France, for example, whatever, is close to winning, and then they go out there and bring in an NBA guy to help them win. Like the question is always this: is that really then the national team? Because national team, at least historically, is supposed to be the team of players who grow up in a country, play for national team, ideally already at a young age, with the youth levels, and then they end up playing for national team. So it kind of feels like a shortcut for many people saying, hey,
it feels like a cheat code.
It's a cheat code, right? Like you bring in, you know what I mean? Like you bring in, whatever player it is, but it adds value, obviously, and then you win. And then it's kind of this negative connotation, like, but you won because of that. But you said it right at the end. I mean, if everybody does it, then let's do it, right? It's just about whether we should do it or not do it at all. I've always been on the side of not doing it at all, even though for Slovenia that would be difficult to cope with, just because we're a small country. We're always missing certain players on certain spots, especially bigs or athletic bigs. But it is what it is. Whereas some people don't mind as much. I particularly do. I don't like it, and I've been very vocal about it. So,
and listen, I think there's a lot of merit to that too. I mean, there is that element of you're taking a spot from somebody that was born there, that was has come up through the youth national program, and that does stink. I mean, that's a crappy aspect behind
Yeah,
it. But
yeah,
the one thing I will say too, and Boki, you touched on this a little bit, bringing in a high level import, a high level naturalized player like that does raise the level of the players around them. And
yeah,
if you do it the right way, especially in the early stages of training camp, you bring up some of those younger bigs to go compete against Jaxson Hayes. They start to realize, oh my goodness, man, like this is what I have to do to get to that level. This is what I have to do to, if you bring in the right guy, like a veteran guy who's going to be willing to teach and willing to help the younger kids that are around, there can be a lot of benefits to that as well. So, and you touched on that. And I do think there's that was one thing, within the international clubs that I've been a head coach of, you always wanted to bring in imports that were going to add value to your younger players, that were going to add value to what you were doing, not just within the game, but, within practice, helping those guys raise their level. So when you have to call on them and count on them, that they'll be better and their A game can sort of fold into what you may need down the line.
for sure. I think in club basketball, we've seen that over decades, and it's
Yes.
improved basketball tremendously in Europe or internationally. But with national teams are much more reserved. I mean, there's Anthony Randall helped us. Jared Holden, I think it was 2007, if I'm not mistaken, made the last second shot to have Russia become European champion against Spain in the final, and so on and so on. There's some teams who are completely different team without an American point guard who pushes the tempo and makes their style of play completely different. So there's always these debates. But I'll end it like you said, if everybody does it, then why not do it, right? So here we are. Yeah.
Chris, thank you so much for taking the time. This was it's great to see you. It's great to hear you. I know you're coming through the Bay Area in March,
Yes.
and I want to make a point of getting to that game if
Great.
I'm in town.
We would love
And
to have you. We would love to have you.
I will be in touch. But in the meantime, thank you so much. Continued success, and I'm sure we will have you back.
Same to you guys. Listen, I can't say this enough about this journey that I've been on, and all the great places I've seen, all the great players I've coached, everything that I've been able to touch and be a part of. The best thing is the relationships that I've been able to build through this process. And I can't say this enough. You are two of the best human beings that I've ever been around. And so it's an honor for me to be a part of this. And I'm always here if you guys need me for anything.
We appreciate it. Hey, you got a great intro, and we got a great outro.
Yeah, exactly.
The bookends, man. That's what life's all about.
There you go.
We appreciate
All
it.
right,
Thanks,
Chris.
Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Chris Thomas, he delivered. Yeah,
For sure.
it was that was a real pleasure to catch up with him. So I think you've already sort of expressed your feelings about the Jaxson Hayes situation. I struggle with it too, because as you said, like it reduces the challenge of how do we work with what we have to make the best of what we've got. And there is an emphasis on winning, right? Everybody is looking to win, but there's also, you're sort of setting a standard for your development and for the guys that are coming up. And if you take away a roster spot from a guy who's spent all those years trying to get there and you hand it to somebody from the outside, there's a little bit of taking away the motivation or raising that question with players trying to get to that spot, thinking, well, they, at any moment they could bring somebody else in to take that spot. And that,
Right.
I struggle with that, because ultimately you want to motivate everybody who has a chance, thinking that they have a chance to play for the national team. And that, like, it just feels like it should be in a different place than it's all out for winning a championship. I get that with club, right?
Yeah.
National
Yeah.
team feels a little bit different.
That's where I stand, and I've played with players who've been naturalized, like we say, and then we had great chemistry, and the guys were awesome. I think in general, it's not about the players, and I want to be very clear. Like in case of, for example, Slovenian national team, like Jaxson Hayes, I don't know the guy, and I think for me as a Slovenian, super appreciated. I appreciated that he's going to dedicate summer or summers to national team and help us win. it's more about the let's call it the political view about this whole thing. To me, it's always been national team should be this pure thing where nationals compete against other nationals, right? And I think there should be definitely harsher rules around it of what is allowed and what not when it comes to somebody playing for a national team. To me, would be that the player definitely has to, grow up in a certain country or be a part of that national team, youth national team, or things like that, but not a player who is 27, 28-year-old and comes in and helps your team win and then doesn't play for a national team ever again.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of takes away this whole national pride thing where, like you said before, you called it well, it's like almost like a cheat code, right?
Yep.
So it comes down to really being smart about it, being inventive about it, finding the right player, the right time that fills the right role, but not so much about making sure that you develop best 12 players from your country, and we'll see if that ever changes in the future. I'd like to see it change back to what it was back in the day, just teams against teams, no cheat codes.
Well, the other part is when I look at it, it's one of the things I appreciate about the EuroLeague, or maybe the European mentality when it comes to viewing success in basketball, which is we've talked about various teams because of the size of their club or their resources or whatever, and they make the Final Four. And you're like, that was a huge accomplishment for them, right? The Lithuanian team making the Final Four, like that. It was a championship in itself. And we often look at, whether it's, Steph Curry at Davidson getting to the Elite Eight, or what the Raptors are doing now, where it's like that team is making the most out of what it is. And are they going to win a championship? Probably not, right? A lot of crazy things would have to happen. But they've made the most out of who and what they are. And I respect that, and I applaud that. And so this feels like if you're not winning the championship, or you're not doing everything to win the championship, then it's a failure, right? And because you're taking these extra measures, right?
Yeah, because it could be that, for example, for a team that has an incredible import or naturalized player wins a medal, it's a huge success. But without that player, that team could maybe make it into top 5 or top 8, and it would probably be considered a bigger success just because of what that team was without that player, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's my thought.
Yeah. But we live in a world where only wins count when it comes to pro level, and everybody's chasing that above everything else. So,
and I think that's caused us, like our principles, if you will, right? Our principles have shifted as a result of that, and I don't know that it's a necessarily good development. Really curious, Asvel. There's been reports that they're not going to go forward in the EuroLeague, and that is a French club that had a long history of success. Last few years, they've been at the bottom of the standings. What would you attribute their fall off to? And let's start there. Just why is Asvel where they are?
I don't know if I would call it the fall off, even though it might definitely seem like it, and it's a long time successful French club. I think since Tony Parker took over some years ago, he established team back in EuroLeague. The team got an A license. They've just never really turned into a highly competitive team at that level. In France, they are. In the EuroLeague level, they never were able to do that. A lot of that has to do with how financially strong the club is or is not, comparing to some others. And there's obvious obstacles for French teams in terms of high taxation countries and how difficult it is for them to compete with some other countries who have easier way when it comes to saving through taxes or signing players to contracts that are simply bigger because of that. And that's definitely a huge part of it. I think that kind of led to maybe a situation where the team is looking for a change of scenery, if you want me to call it like that, and start fresh. How are they going to continue to evolve as a club, and in what capacity Tony's going to stay there or not? I don't know. it's not my conversation to have, but Lyon is a team. Also, Lyon is a team that's been long respected in Europe, and it's a name that means something. So we'll see them not continuing in EuroLeague potentially, even though it's not official at this point. It wouldn't surprise people at this point, but it would definitely be a game changer from the point that you're losing in EuroLeague a team that is obviously a historic name in that sense. Like I played against Asvel, one of my first games in Europe at the European basketball level was against that team back in the day. So you can imagine how long they've been around.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seems odd to me to look elsewhere. Like a change of scenery is going to change where the club is right now, right? I don't quite understand, and I guess we will.
Maybe the route would be what Alba Berlin has done a year ago. They also basically said no thanks to EuroLeague or vice versa.
Yeah,
it doesn't even matter at this point. But they went the route to play FIBA Champions League, and now are kind of waiting to see to get a ticket for the NBA Europe train,
Yeah.
So and there's of course some excitement around that, and possibly Asvel could do the same. I mean, we're talking about a different approach, different financial model than what we've seen in Europe, and these teams who are not able to compete with Olympiacoses and FC Barcelonas of the world and Monacos of the world and whatnot.
Yeah.
You're kind of seeing them maybe changing their approach and changing their path towards success, which means, potentially going to a different league.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned Monaco, because that is a team that has spent, and yet right now there's some questions about their financial situation, and this goes to this is the bigger subject about EuroLeague. Like, you have individuals spending a ton of money, not necessarily being incredibly lucrative as a result. Like it's a passion project, right?
Yeah, passion project.
And Monaco is in that situation. Is there, from what you know, or as you look at the situation, how dire is it, and like how did we get here and how do we get out of it?
Yeah, it's a pretty serious situation. I think we were able to see some of the issues starting already last season, or towards the end of last season, where some of the financial issues started minor, I would call them at that time, but it kind of trickled into next season, and it was getting worse from month to month, I think. And I don't know the details around how the club operates in sense of their money, the cash flow and sponsorships and all this. But I can say that there's definitely a serious situation where the team now is seeking help from investors or new owners. There's municipality of Monaco got involved in order to quote unquote save the club so it doesn't go down. I think there's a real initiative behind it to make sure that the club stays afloat and we can continue to see that team stay together, because they've done really good things in EuroLeague. I believe they played last 3 out of 4 Final Fours, if I'm not mistaken. Incredible players on that team, incredible talent, extremely exciting basketball that they play, and would be a shame to see them, that club disappear. But they do need to, of course, make some steps forward. That team needs, first of all, to stabilize itself, or the club. Number 2, they need a bigger arena. They play probably the smallest arena compared to a high school arena in the States almost, that is kind of being allowed them to do that with the hopes or with plans to have a new arena coming in some years. And I think with EuroLeague now having also a new leadership, I could see pressure being put on Monaco now. Hey, you guys are going to have to step it up in order to continue to stay at this elite level. Yeah. And we all want that. It's like I said, it's been an exciting team to watch, and we'd love to see that story continue, but there's some work to do there.
I don't know if you've ever experienced this as a player, but I'm wondering what it's like when there's news of the financial uncertainty about your team.
I've been there.
What is that? I mean, how does that impact you as you are trying to play?
It's extremely difficult. Because what happens is, and sometimes I think the owners, management, maybe even coaches don't realize that it starts to make cracks inside of the team, because everybody starts to think for himself all of a sudden, right? Because you want to think, hey, am I staying here? Am I looking to go somewhere else? Your agent might call you, say, hey, there's another opportunity opening up either next month, next season, whatever. So your focus shifts away. you're not going to go poor overnight. I mean, these players are making good money, and they're elite players. They're going to continue to find places where they make good money, that is equivalent to their talent level. The issue is more about, hey, what's best for me right here, right now. And when these conversations start coming into players' minds, that locker room little by little goes sideways. I think for a little bit you can stick together and you can kind of say, hey, let's go get together, go through this as a group. But if this continues too long, then you can kind of see these issues. And in case of Monaco, we'd hate to see that happen. That team has done too much in recent years and also this season to basically fall apart, because they're one of the most fun teams to watch.
Yeah. A game of the week was Virtus going in and beating Monaco in Monaco. You picked that as the game of the week, I think in part, at least because of what Virtus did, right?
Yeah. It had nothing to do with me choosing that game, because of the issues that are happening in Monaco. It's more
right.
has to do with.
I wasn't suggesting.
Of course. It's more about the significance of winning on the road for Virtus against Monaco, against a great team that has its issues now, yes, but Monaco was in this game until basically mid fourth quarter, when Virtus, that was behind the whole game, was able to turn it around. Got a substantial lead, but then what happens? The talent comes into play, and Monaco takes the lead about a minute and a half to go. Luca Vildoza took a huge shot, a couple of seconds left in the game. He's an ex-NBA Milwaukee Buck, played there for one season, I believe. Great player, and he made a huge shot from the top of the key, made a three-pointer, and that was it. But a huge road win for Virtus. That's a team that is actually probably the biggest surprise so far in the season, in my opinion. And it's a team that you always love these underdog stories. Not many people counted they'll be so close to playoffs at this moment, but they have a legit shot of making the play-in, which would be absolutely huge for that team from Bologna.
Yeah. We are we're going to get into that a little bit more in the next episode, about the teams that are on the outside looking in and who might be able to take a step in from, say, the play-in to maybe a secure spot, or from outside the play-in into the play-in to be a factor. It's close enough. There's enough teams close enough, and there's still enough left in the season for something to happen. But for now, we are going to say goodbye, and Boki, we will do it again next week.
See you soon.